Hello and welcome to ChatterBox. I'm Josh Denzel and I'm joined by my regular sparring partner, Carl Frampton. Now, we'll be joined later in the show by Hall of Fame promoter Frank Warren and top trainer JB Moore, and not to mention the juggernaut Joyce. But before we talk about anything else, we need to speak about Ladumo Lamati and the awful situation that happened at the conclusion of his fight with Nick Ball in Belfast, where he collapsed and was taken into hospital suffering from serious injuries. And at the time of recording of this show, he is in an induced coma. He is stable, and his family have been brought in by Frank Warren and his team and BT to be at his bedside. So everyone at BT Sport, and indeed the whole sporting world, is praying for his full recovery.
Yeah, it was horrible. I was at ringside, and where he kind of collapsed was the corner closest to where I was standing, and I was maybe only 5 yards away from what was going on. And it's the first time that I've ever seen something like that in boxing or been in an event where this has happened. And yeah, it's pretty horrible. But we're hearing good reports, and I've been trying to keep up to date as well, and find out obviously that he's in Belfast, and find out a little bit more information about how he's doing. But by all accounts, things seem to be going the right way.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, everything else in the ring last weekend clearly pales into insignificance. But we're going to talk about those three world title fights in Belfast, Bournemouth, and Manchester. Now, Steve Bunce wrote an article for the BBC saying it was bad news for British and Irish boxing to have three big events on the same night. Carl, would you agree?
Absolutely. I think it's just kind of another case of boxing shooting itself in the foot, where the spotlight could have individually been on each of these events on different occasions, where they can be getting as many headlines in the papers, where all the journalists could be there, where the viewers on TV could get to see them all. It's one of them instances where boxing does itself no favors. It's happened before where there's been two on the same night, and that's always been bad.
Right.
But three world title fights in the UK in one night is unheard of. But it's a bit of a shame, and I don't know how you fix it. The promoters don't tend to be the best of mates, and they don't really care about affecting another guy's promotion, if I'm being honest. So I don't know, maybe the board of control, it's something they could step in and help out with, but it's something that needs to be looked at, certainly.
Now, one of those fights that maybe didn't get the shine it deserved because it was on the same night as two other world title fights. Mick Conlan, you were actually in Belfast for Mick Conlan's world title fight against Luis Alberto Lopez. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be for Mick. Let's take a look.
Conlan could do something big here, just to like that, slap that right hand. Yes, a solid body shot. Oh my goodness! Conlan down. Three towels come in. He's gone straight in. They've set it off.
Carl, talk to me. You were ringside. What went wrong for Mick there?
Lopez is just a very, very good fighter. I think that Mick, and I've said this a number of times, is probably one of the most skilled fighters that Ireland as a whole has ever produced. Very skillful, but I think one of his issues was, I don't think Mick is probably renowned as the biggest puncher in the world, and to have someone like Lopez, I think you need to be able to box him from distance, which Mick could certainly do, but you also need to have something that makes him think twice about jumping in, and a big solid ramrod jab, and I just don't know if that's what Mick has, and I think that was why Lopez seemed to not care really about getting hit, just to land his own. So yeah, it was a bad night. It was a bad night for Mick, but Lopez, incredible fighter, and for my mind anyway, probably the number one featherweight on the planet at the minute.
You know, it's a real shame for the fans. Obviously, their hometown hero got stopped. Now, it looked like there was an incredible atmosphere in the stadium. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I was expecting an unbelievable atmosphere. It was a sold out SSA Arena, formerly the Odyssey Arena, and I boxed there I think 9 times, and probably 7 or 8 of them maybe have been up in the bill. So I know what it's like, and it's a cauldron. It's not the biggest arena in the world. I think maximum capacity is 9,000, but because it's the shape of it, it's kind of a low roof, so the noise just bounces back off the ceiling. I mean, and I've always wanted to be involved in a fight at the Odyssey like that wasn't one of my own, so I had the chance to do it, but obviously it wasn't the result that the majority of people were to see. We want to make the win. We still want to see big nights coming back to Belfast, but I think we kind of probably needed Mick to win that fight.
Now we've got to talk about Lopez. He looks an absolute monster at the weight. Is he future undisputed champion for you?
I think he could be. I think he's the best of the featherweights at the minute. He looked to have improved again and went up a level even from the Warrington performance. Really unorthodox for a Mexican, not typical type of Mexican. He jumps in from, 10 feet out sometimes and throws uppercuts from his hands down at his knees. It's a difficult style to beat, but he's not unbeatable. Obviously, no one's unbeatable really, but for my mind, he's the best of the featherweights, and I think if he's given a chance against any of the other to try and unify, he could certainly do that.
Now we've got to chat about, I guess, a previous opponent of Mick's, Lee Wood. That was an incredible fight, a great performance from Lee.
Yeah, it was a really smart, clever performance from Lee. I thought that it was very brave of him to take the instant rematch. Lara's dangerous. He's a real solid puncher. We all know that. But I think he's limited in terms of his boxing ability, and a clever boxer could beat Lara. If you have enough punch power that he doesn't just march forward all night, and you've got enough about you that you can think your way around a ring, I think he could be easily outboxed, and Lee Wood showed that. He learned from his mistakes in the first fight. I had him winning the first fight, and he just got a little bit overeager and a bit greedy and got caught with a shot. He was cautious enough not to do that this time, and he won, really, really convincingly.
And there was a big upset in Bournemouth. Hometown favourite Wood and Billam-Smith defeated Lawrence Okoli to win a WBO World Cruiserweight title. Now, what do you make of that? Because I want your opinion on this, because they must have sparred hundreds of rounds in the gym, and he took him as a voluntary. So you'd think that Okoli would have gone in there super confident, and it didn't look like that when he was down in the 4th, 10th and 11th rounds.
Yeah, look, I would have thought that probably initially when Okoli joined that gym, I'd have thought that Billam-Smith would have been used as a bit of cannon fodder, and just for Okoli to beat up and give rounds. And Okoli taking it on a voluntary, you'd have probably thought that was accurate in my assumption, but Okoli was terrible. He was so bad. There was something really interesting that Shane McGuigan said in the lead up to it about Okoli's frame of mind, and that Chris is mentally stronger than him, and that may be the difference in the fight. And it was clear to see. I was speaking to another boxing journalist, and they'd said about Okoli had previously done an interview with him where he'd said he never ever wants to be in a hard fight. And that's just not the right attitude, I don't think. I think he needs to get his head sorted out, and he needs to get a bit more confident about his own ability. And he needs to know that sometimes it's not going to be jab and grab, and that's not always going to work. He's going to be involved in tough fights. And that's if he wants to continue. After that performance, without sounding too harsh, that looked like the performance of someone who doesn't want to be a boxer.
Harsh words, Carl. I'm sure you're going to bump into Okoli at one of these other fight nights. I'll be stood next to you for that.
I'm always falling out with people. This is my issue. Flip's sake.
Now, just before we end part one, we've got to talk about Spence Crawford. A long time in the making. Errol Spence, Terence Crawford finally agreed to fight for the undisputed welterweight championship, Las Vegas, on July 29th. Quite possibly the biggest fight of the year. Who have you got for that, Carl? Two incredible fighters.
Look, it's easily the biggest fight of the year. I'm trying to think. Is there a bigger fight in the last decade. I'm not quite sure. I think you got to go way back to the four kings: Hagler, Hearns, Ray Leonard, and Duran. That's the type of fight we're talking about here, and we're getting it at the right time. It was something I thought it was a fight that was dragging on a bit, and I thought maybe it's going to be like a Mayweather Pacquiao, and we see it when these guys are both past their best. But currently they're right in their prime. I think there's a dog in Crawford. You know what I mean? He's Crawford. I think put a gun to my head. I'm saying Crawford, but I'm not that confident.
Oof, well, we'll see. July 29th. It's one that the world will be tuning in for. Now, that's all we got time for part one. Join us after the break. We're joined by Frank Warren for all the latest news on the Queensberry stable. Stay with us. Hello and welcome back to ChatterBox, where I'm delighted to say we're joined by Hall of Fame promoter Frank Warren. Welcome, Frank. Now, before we talk about the boxing, how are you doing? I know you've had some major back issues in the recent months.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm getting at my age, the body's falling apart, but I'm doing okay. I can't complain, and I'll be back in action, and I hope I will be at the next show.
Yeah, this one will cheer you up, Frank. You talk about bodies falling apart. I done the dad race at my little boy's school sports day and pulled my hamstring. You want to see the state of it? Big bruise right up the back of my leg.
I'm sorry to hear a young man like you. A fit young man like you. I'm an old geezer. You're a young man. What's going on? By the way,
two very sharp minds, though.
You've done a very good job on Saturday. Oh,
thank you.
Good work.
Thanks, Frank.
Pleasure.
Right, let's start with Saturday's show in Belfast. It wasn't the result that anyone wanted. Mick Conlan obviously losing the main event. Now, the big question is, can he come again?
For me, it just wasn't his time. You know, I thought at times he got caught. He's a very brave guy. We know that, and he tried his heart out. But I think the fella was just a little bit too much for him. But it doesn't mean he can't come again. And there's some good fights, if he still wants to carry on boxing, that can be made and get himself back into a position. And I think a real good domestic fight would be him and Nick Ball. Would be a tremendous fight between the two of them, which could go on in Belfast because there's such a great audience over there and such an appreciated boxing. They're like boxing connoisseurs, and I think that would be a great fight to put on in Belfast. But look, you know, Mick at the moment, I'm sure, has got a million things on his mind. You know, he's got to think through what he wants to do, but whatever he wants, we certainly have some fights there if he wants to continue. And I don't think there's no reason why he shouldn't continue.
After a knockout loss like that, and that's his second one in a number of fights, Frank, do you think Mick would take a Nick Ball fight? He's very aggressive. He can punch really, really hard. Do you think that's a fight that he would be interested in?
I think for me, and I'm being sort of probably very commercial and blunt about it, it is a commercial fight, and it'll gauge who Nick Ball is and whether he's ready for the big time or not. You know, some people have got views on that, and other people think that he's not quite ready yet. But we would find out if we made that fight. And you're right what you say, Carl. You know, he has had 2 knockouts, but if he is going to continue, I mean, you can't go backwards. You've got to start at a certain level. And I think, you know, him and Nick, I think would be a really good domestic bust-up. I think they're, for everybody to watch, because the styles will make the fights. And by the way, whilst we're on that subject, it was a very good win for Nick, but it was a tragic win. You know, Ladumo Lamati is in hospital. He's still in Belfast. He's in an drug-induced coma, which anybody who has a bad head injury is put into, whether it be a car crash, a rugby injury, and certainly, as far as he's concerned, a boxing injury. But he's in a good place. We're flying his family over. Or his family may be over here now. We brought them over so they can be at his bedside when he wakes up. You know, it's a tragic ending. It's a great shame. It's something us in boxing all worry about at all times. But I genuinely believe that he showed what he was made of. He was a very tough competitor, and he'd probably give Nick his hardest fight yet. And if he's fighting like he is now in the hospital, I'm sure he's going to come out of that to be with his family. And we all wish him the best and wish him to come through this and get back to, and as I say, get back to his family.
Absolutely. I think that we all here, echo those sentiments and wish him well, and wish him good health. Sure. Now, there's been a lot of fights going on. Last week it was super, super busy. Now Pierce O'Leary, he continues to shine. This was his latest knockout by the Irishman. Let's take a look.
Brighter than that.
That left hook was coming, John. He just landed one 30 seconds earlier, just as you were talking. That was a fantastic shot. He's done really well to get up from that.
Victor Loughlin, the referee, having a close look. It could be all over here in this first round. He's going looking for him, O'Leary.
Needs to go to the body. Oh, he's got it. That's it.
Big right uppercut, and the referee sees his head rock back, sees his leg stiffened, says enough is enough, and there is the most dramatic start imaginable.
Frank Carr, what did you make of that fight?
Well, look, I'm a big fan, and I'm really delighted that he's with us and he's on BT. He is a tremendous, tremendous prospect, and he's a good finisher. And if you get someone in trouble, it's all over, and that's what he did, and he done it in good style in that first round. And we're going to step him up, but I believe by the end of the year he'll be in some sort of big title fight.
Yeah, I think he's a really good fighter, Pierce O'Leary. I think that, I suppose, Irish boxing took a bit of a hit over the last couple of weekends with Katie Taylor and Gary Cully losing, and then obviously Mick Conlan as well. So I think coming through, you got to be looking at who's the next big stars coming through, and I think at the top of that list, it's got to be Pierce O'Leary. He can really, really fight. And just as I said, he needs to go to the body, as he was going head hunting after he'd hurt the opponent. He stops him with a left hook. So that was I got that wrong, didn't I?
It was a lovely uppercut he threw as well there. But he's a very, very good finisher, and I think that Alan Smith's done a brilliant job with him. I mean, he's a dedicated boxer. He really trains hard, and he's willing to live away from home to make his way in the game. And those rewards are all going to come for him. In what all that sacrifice he's putting in is going to work out for him. I really genuinely believe that.
Right, let's move on to the heavyweights. Rumours Daniel Dubois against Alexander Usyk. It's happening, right?
It's on. They won the purse bid. Usyk's people, K2, they won the purse bid. They bid $8 million for it. They outbid us by $3 million. They had 75% of the purse bid to play with because their boxer gets 75%. I'm sure they've done a deal with him. So Daniel walks away with gross $2 million before all his stoppages on the fight. And I don't know what Usyk's getting, but if he's $6 million, that's much, much, much less than he would have got if he'd have fought Tyson. And it also determines his value, because I genuinely believe if Daniel Dubois and Tyson Fury had gone to purse bids, that bid would have been around £30 million. Easy. So Tyson's right in what he says. Who's the attraction? Who's the draw? And it's him. And, in the meantime now, they probably think in their minds that this is going to be basically a workout for Usyk. And they're going to be shocked because Daniel will, I honestly, genuinely believe Daniel will knock him out. I think he'll be too big for him, too strong for him. He's going to come away with those 3 belts.
I think one thing that might benefit him from this whole change of trainer scenario, obviously Don Charles is a very good trainer, but with his previous gym, there's a lot of fighters who are requiring a lot of time. Don Charles can be on Daniel Dubois 100% and look after him and completely put all his energy into him ahead of a massive fight. So that's maybe something that he wouldn't have had if he'd have stayed where he was.
I agree with that. He's the number one guy there, and he's in the number one fight. I mean, this is the real big time. You know, he's fighting an undefeated guy who holds 3 of the belts. It's a massive key to the future. We've got Tyson, who also will fight in early autumn. So he's there ready to go. And if he comes away with that, just think what we can build, the fights we can make, the fights we can build. They're huge. So there's a lot of things there. There's a big carrot there for him. It's a huge carrot. And if he wins it, he's going to make seriously big money. He's going to be in the big time. And, you know, that'll be it. It'd be what we set out to do with him, which we more or less got there with him when we turned pro. I said he'll win a title. He's won a version of the WBA title. Now he's in the real big time. We're going to see whether he deserves to be there. But he will get all the attention. You know, I don't think Don's got a lot of fighters around him. But irrespective of that, you know, Don's not stupid. He knows that if Daniel comes through this, he knows himself it's going to change his life as well. So he'll be putting all his energies into it.
There were some suggestions that Tyson Fury will be fighting Zhang, but it looks like now it'll be Joyce Zhang 2 after Joe accepted the rematch clause. Now, we've got Joe on the show after the break. And is it a risky fight for him to take on, given what happened in the first time where we saw Zhang repeatedly catch him? So there's a lot of stuff for Joe to work on with his trainer, Salah.
I watched that fight on TV. And for me, nearly every fight he's had, he's taken, I say, unnecessary shots. I don't like seeing somebody taking a shot to land a shot or taking a couple of shots. But what Zhang managed to do, because he was a southpaw as well, and I think Joe struggled a bit with that, to settle into a rhythm with it. And I think Joe also came in a little bit lighter than he should have done. But what Joe did, it wasn't like he was wobbling or anything. It's just that his eye was gone. His eye went. He had a bad eye injury, and he couldn't carry on with it. And it was as simple as that. He's got to make significant changes for the next fight. He can't do what he did last time. For me, it would have been interesting if he hadn't had the eye injury and that fight had gone into the later rounds. What would have happened? Because before the fight, I felt that Joe, as the fight went on, I felt that it would become his fight. I thought as the more we get into the sort of second half of the fight, I genuinely thought he would come through, and that's what I think. If he can deal with the southpaw stance, that's what I believe will happen in the next fight. But it's going to be, can he change what he did last time? Because if he does what he did last time, then he's going to be in trouble.
That's what I'm of the same opinion as you, Frank. I think that Joe, although he was behind on points and Zhang was outboxing him at times, there was just signs where he was coming back more into the fight and Zhang was starting to tire a little bit. And my belief going into the fight anyway was always that it wasn't going to be easy, but Joe would have stopped him late. And it may well have happened if obviously the eye injury didn't occur. Is
there a little bit of a worry there that we've never seen Joe cut up like that or marked up like that, and then in this fight we saw potentially a wobble in the early stages, and then the eye blew up? And we know Joe takes, like you said, you don't want to say unnecessary shots, but he sometimes takes a shot to get one off. Is that something you should be thinking about? And what would Salas be telling Joe, and what would they be working on in the gym?
Well, I think they'll be working on the southpaw style, and look, they've got it first. It's not like he's training for a fighter who he doesn't know. He shared a ring with him, so he knows what Zhang's strengths are, and he knows what his weaknesses were in that fight. So he's got to work on his weaknesses. And it's really simple. He's got to work. He's got to move his head, and as you say, when big guys like that are throwing punches, they hurt. We've seen Tyson on the floor and get up. Joe wobbled. But the bottom line of it is he didn't go over, and he's tough. He has got a good chin, but I don't want to keep seeing his chin getting tested because he's got a good jab. I mean, when you look back at the fight he had prior to that against Parker, he boxed extremely well. But there were times in that fight he got caught again with big shots.
Frank, before we let you go, just a quick mention of what's coming up for BT, what's coming up for you guys. Let the fans know. I'm sure they're eagerly awaiting the news.
Well, we've got a good show on the 9th. We've got David Adelaide back out again, undefeated heavyweight. Is he going to be the star of the future? He's looking really good at the moment. He's in a good fight. We've got Mark Chamberlain, also undefeated on that card. We've got young Royston on there. We've got a lot of our young talent on that show, so I'm really looking forward to it. That's going to be great. And then I think we move on to Telford. We've got some great fights going on up there. So we've built quite a good audience up there in the Midlands. So I'm really looking forward to that show, and I think that's going to be exciting. And we're about to announce quite a few dates in the next week or so with some of our really big fighters. So we'll be letting people know what's happening, for example, with Anthony Yard, Hamza, Dennis McCann, obviously Tyson, and a few of the other young guys that we got coming through. So it's all exciting times, and it'll be on. By the time those fights are announced, they'll be on TNT.
There we go. We're all looking forward to that. Seems like boxing fans are in for an absolute treat over the coming months.
This is dynamite stuff. This is explosive fights.
There we go. He's already got the line. He's already got the lines. That's all we've got time for in part 2. Thanks as always for joining us, Frank. Now, we've just been talking about Joe Joyce, and after the break, we'll be joined by the juggernaut himself, so don't go away. Hello and welcome back to part 3 of ChatterBox, where I'm delighted to say we're joined by big Joe Joyce. How are you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Had a bit of time off now, and yeah, I'm back and ready to start again.
You made a good joke after the fight. You said basically an eye for an eye when you mentioned Dubois. Now, were you surprised by the power of Zhang? He landed a lot of telling punches. I think that it was a fight. I guess it went a different way to what a lot of the boxing fans expected.
Yeah, I was quite surprised. He's very quick and accurate with his punches, and he's no mug. He's a very good fighter, and he was just so quick. And you knew exactly. He's a very good southpaw, counter southpaw, and he was just landing the shots at will. Really, is a tough fight, and I perhaps wasn't prepared enough for him. I did my best what I could do, but I think I could do a lot better. And going back to the drawing boards, I think there's certain things I can do to improve. I could be more successful in the fight, because it wasn't a great look for me. I didn't perform well at all.
I'm sure during the fight, you maybe even watching it back, if you have watched it back, it always took me a long time to watch the fights back, but me being at ringside, I was frustrated, Joe. I was shouting. I'm meant to be neutral as a pundit, but I was screaming into the ring to keep moving to the other side of the southpaw, and I thought there was just some little things you could have done, and the outcome may have been different in the fight. Were you frustrated yourself?
Yeah, it's like I didn't really. It was kind of. I didn't really know when to. I was kind of uncomfortable in there because he's a southpaw and he knew what he was doing. I was a bit unsure, and I was kind of trying to land shots, and they weren't really effective. And his one was just getting me every time in the eye, and it was like quite hard to get away from that shot, block it or to anticipate it or something. It was just coming in very fast, and we were trying to counter it. I mean, because he was like, as I was throwing, as I was putting my hands out, he was coming back, coming down straight down the middle.
My opinion going into the fight was always that it wasn't going to be an easy fight, but it was a fight that I thought you would win. I thought you would probably stop Zhang late. Do you think that may have happened if the eye hadn't been so badly swollen? Because just when the fight was stopped and the doctor stopped it, there was just signs that he was starting to tire a little bit.
Yeah, he started taking backwards steps a little bit, and not really kind of. Yeah, he looked like he was starting to feel the pace, and if it wasn't for the eye, then I would have carried on. But I mean, the eye wasn't terrible; it was bruised, but I couldn't. Yeah, but yeah, credit to Zhang, he was a tough guy in the night, and I have to come with some. I think I think I could beat him, but it's just that performance, and I didn't really get it right on the night, and I'm sure I could beat him this time.
there are some huge fights in talks for a potential super series in Saudi Arabia at the end of the year. There's mentions of Tyson Fury against Usyk, if Usyk comes past Dubois, and AJ Wilder on the same night, and then the winners will face each other. If that does materialize, how do you see those fights going?
What, with 4 of them in that tournament? I don't know. Styles make fights, man. Like, you can see some upsets and stuff there. I don't know, man. Like, but realistically, is it going to happen? Is it going to get to that? Because, like, so many
money talks,
egos
money
and
talks.
money talks. Yeah, exactly, money talks. But I don't know. They, the potential to earning is great with any of them fights. So, but to tie them all together is. Well, let's see what happens. See if it materializes.
Boxing, Joe. Like, I mean, when something seems too good to be true, then
it
probably is too good to be true. It may never happen.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so let's just see it when it's when we're actually in front of it. This ding ding round 1 fight starts, then it's on.
Then we'll come to you. We'll come to you ringside for your opinion on who takes the win. Now, out of those 4, who would you say is top of the tree? Obviously, you got Tyson Usyk. Can you give us a quick prediction on that? And then AJ Wilder, of course.
Well, I'd like to see Tyson Usyk or Usyk Tyson, or whichever way you want to put it. But like, I think Usyk throws a lot of punches. He's a southpaw. He's got good footwork, stays on the target like he did against Joshua. So if he's fighting that like that against Fury, it's going to cause him problems because he throws a lot of punches. He's an awkward southpaw. But Fury's taller than him, so he can like big man him, and he's got longer range and longer range, and can make it uncomfortable for him on the inside. So, but like. So whoever wins between those 2 is the winner, I think, because Fury's already shown he can beat Joshua. I mean, sorry, not Joshua. Sorry, beat Wilder. I'd like to see.
Would you say Wilder beats AJ?
Yeah, I think he does because he just has to detonate one of them right hands, and it's all over. If he can land it, and but then again, Joshua's got some still boxing ability, still can hit, I guess, if he's on form. But yeah, I see it like either Usyk or Fury at the top, then Wilder third place, Joshua fourth, I reckon. But you never know. It only takes 1 punch in heavyweight boxing.
That's absolutely correct. Now, hopefully, you'll be right in the mix to take on the winner of that Super Series if it ever does happen. And money talks. So it's Saudi. There's always the potential. Now, Joe, it's been great to speak to you as always. But that's all we got time for in terms of part 3 of ChatterBox. Join us in part 4. We'll be joined by Jamie Moore, who recently trained Chantel Cameron to a memorable victory over Katie Taylor in Dublin. See you next time, Joe. Hello and welcome back to the final part of ChatterBox, and we're joined by one of the country's most successful trainers, Jamie Moore. Jamie, I know you're on a bit of a roll right now. 2 brilliant wins in the space of 8 days, obviously for Jack Catterall and, of course, Chantel Cameron. Now, we'll talk about Jack in a minute, but let's talk about that famous night in Dublin.
Yeah, well, obviously it's going to be up there with one of the best we'll ever have as a gym. It was unbelievable night, a great fight as well, which I thought it would be. But I got right back to 4.5 years ago when Chantel came to us. I always thought that she had the style to beat Katie, and so it proved.
Now, Katie was very gracious in defeat. I think at that time, she knew she'd been beaten by the better fighter.
Yeah, I think you can tell body language, is a big part of stuff like that. I never expected anything different from Katie. She's a phenomenal athlete, great person. I thought they both of them came across really well in that little documentary that went out before the fight. So I think, she was definitely gracious in defeat, and Chantel, very quietly spoken, doesn't really say much, but she certainly let the actions speak for her.
We all know, Jimmy, how important someone like Katie has been to the sport and helped put it on the world stage and the global stage. But she's 36, 37 in July. Are you surprised that she's pushing for the rematch with Chantel?
Yeah, I am, but I don't expect anything different from Katie. And I was talking about this yesterday with Nige. If you think about some of the stuff she was saying in the build-up about how proud she is of the legacy she's leaving, and she's she doesn't feel it's important for her, but she's doing it for the next generation, so that she loves seeing gyms full of little girls training and stuff. Like, if she walks away now after losing her first fight as a professional, probably doesn't fit in with what she's doing to encourage kids, and that message, what would then be? Well, the first time you lose, you walk away.
Carl, I understand you actually sparred Chantel back in the day. And when you sparred her, do you realise that she was going to be something special?
I'd done a wee bit of sparring with Chantel. We'd done some stuff, a bit of body sparring, and it was a few rounds, wasn't there, Jimmy? It was a few rounds. I'm not sure how many. It wouldn't have been loads, but what I remember from any sparring session with Chantel was, and I've done stuff with Katie, and to be honest, throughout my career, I've sparred a number of girls probably, but I don't ever remember hitting as hard as Chantel, and that's really what surprised me about when I did spar. Her strength was far superior than any other that I'd ever shared the ring with.
Yeah, I have to spar with lads regular. Akib Fiaz is one of the main guys in our gym who spars her on a regular basis, because you just can't get the type of quality sparring you need for it to get a full, hard session a lot of the time with the girls. So she's a phenomenal fighter, and we always knew that, and that what happened last Saturday just sort of reconfirmed that for us.
We've got to talk about nicknames, because your gym has some special ones, because Chantel is nicknamed Il Capo and Jack Catterall is nicknamed El Gato. Where did those two nicknames come about?
Well, El Gato, Jack already had El Gato before he came to our gym. So that was already done.
He done a lot of, sorry to jump in, Jimmy, but then he remember Jack long time ago was in Mexico, or in America, sparring Canelo when he was based in the States.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where that's where that connection came.
Well, it's probably because he's got cat-like reflexes. I'm not joking. That's probably where it comes from. But and he sparred Mayweather as well. I think he was Mayweather's sparring partner when he was fighting Pacquiao. So he had so much experience at a young age. In them circumstances, you must pick up so much, absorb so much, being around them type of fighters. So it's stood him in good stead, obviously, in the long run. But so El Gato was already a thing for Jack. Chantel, when she came to our gym, wanted a fresh start, and she wanted a new nickname. My missus sort of came up with it. She did a bit of research, and she was like, she's a boss. That's what she sort of used to say about her. She said she's a boss, like a boss lady, and she did a bit of research, seeing what names she could come up with, and that was the best one which she came up with. So it stuck. Chantel liked it straight away, and it stuck.
It definitely beat some of the nicknames I got at school, let me tell you that. Now, last weekend, obviously, Jack made his comeback, obviously, with an impressive win against Dara Foley after being out there, what was about a year and 3 months. Now, how long did it take you both to get over the decision against Josh Taylor, when I think the majority of the boxing world, anyone you spoke to, Twitter, social media, thought Jack won that fight and should be taken out?
Yeah. Listen, I was devastated for Jack at the time. It was obviously for him, to be honest with you, I was on the phone to him a couple of days on the trot, and he could hear in his voice, he was really sort of downbeat about it. The third day, when I spoke to him, you could see he had a bit of energy about his voice and was like, you sound different today. I just swore then, sorry. I said, you sound a bit different today. And he was like, you know what? I'm not letting this get me down now. I just need to crack on. Hopefully we'll get a rematch. And then it dragged on and dragged on. And for whatever reason, it's not happened, but it's in the past. And he performed unbelievably well on Saturday against a good, solid opponent. He's shown a bit of everything. And I think this is probably the best time for him now. He's not got a lot of miles on the clock, Jack. So he's 30 this year, he's 30 soon, and he's probably got another 3 or 4 years where he'll be in his prime. He really looks after himself, and I think he's going to be involved in some huge fights over the next few years.
I think that Josh Taylor, I have a feeling that Josh Taylor probably stops Teofimo Lopez, and it's probably not much of a consolation to Jack, but then it just kind of clarifies to everybody how good a fighter that Jack Catterall is. They know it anyway, but it's just a bit more recognition, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, listen, I've no doubt Josh understands, Jack's a world-class fighter. He'll never say it. Why would he? They've got that rivalry between each other. But for me, that's a good thing in boxing. If people who create rivalries, generally, the profile's increased, the wages increase, in the long run. So if this scenario unfolds, which I think it could do, and Jack can pick up a world title over the next sort of 6 months, and Josh is still around, it makes the rematch so much bigger than it would have been if he was going straight back into it. So everything happens for a reason. I'm a big believer in that.
Now, you've spoken about the gym being and having had some incredible fighters in it. I want to talk about maybe some of your proudest moments, your finest moments. And for me, obviously, Rocky Fielding winning the world title and then fighting Conlan, that must be up there as a huge moment, a very proud moment. And of course, our very own Carl Frampton. How was it working with Carl?
We had some great times with Carl. We had some bad nights as well, but we had some great times overall, and it's all a positive for me. It was a privilege to work with him. Don't want to blow smoke up his backside while he's sat there, but he's a great man. Lovely to have around, and it was a privilege for him to come and train with us. Rocky in Germany, so he was brand new as a gym, really, only really just starting out. Even with Carl, really, when he first came, but it sort of worked, and Rocky got that opportunity, and we went over to Germany and against all the odds and pulled it off, and it was that will always be one of the best ones up there. But I've got to say, last week what happened in Dublin will always be right up at the top, because you don't get much bigger than that.
Yeah, without putting words in their mouth, Jamie, I think, and although you've had bigger wins in terms of what the titles meant, but Tommy Coyle and doing what he done, because I know how special Tommy is to you and how much of a relationship you guys have. That's gotta almost mean as much as the big nights as well. You know what I mean, or maybe more even.
Well, do you know what? Like I said to you about titles. I mean, the occasion last week was what made it so special. But the stuff what we did with Tommy and getting him a Commonwealth title. I'm devastated I wasn't able to be in the corner that night, because we was boxing Donaire. But just the stuff what he says to us about how we changed him as a person and made him a better man and stuff like that means more to me really than even titles. So, Sean McGoldrick, we've just had Sean McGoldrick win the British and Commonwealth title. He's got a horrendous hand injury, came back from that. The game plan, it was the most complex game plan we ever had to come up with to get him through that fight because of his injury, and he's come back through it, and he's now British and Commonwealth champion. So things like that, where you're helping people fulfill lifelong dreams, just unbelievable. Sean doesn't have to box; he's doing it because he loves it, and that type of achievement, no one could ever take that away from him now, and that's it. It's written in the history books. So, like I say, it's about trying to help people fulfill their dreams, and that's what makes me happy. So it's a win.
Here's another one. Here's another one for you. Mark Leach winning a British title, because it would have been a hard task for anyone to get Mark at a stage to do from couch to 5K. He was that lazy, didn't like training, but he's unbelievably talented fighter.
He's still that lazy, but you know he's a phenomenally talented fighter, unbelievably talented, and I'm begging him. I'm saying, Mark, please come in the gym and get busy, because no one's going to give you 6 or 8 weeks notice for a fight because you're that good. They'll try and get you on 3, and hopefully you won't be fit. And I don't want him to be that fighter sat in Curzon Social Club in Salford when he's 50 years old saying, I should have been a world champion. Because if he doesn't sort of get in the gym and get busy, he will be that guy, and I don't want that to happen for him.
Some incredible stories and some great memories, I'm sure, coming flooding back. Now, you gave high praise to Carl. Now, Carl, I'm sure you got great things to say about Jamie. How was it working with him?
It was amazing. Like when I teamed up, it was my dad suggested to me about training with Jamie after I'd split with the McGuigans, and Jamie, I think at the time, was maybe only training Tommy Coyle, maybe Martin Murray as well. I'm not sure, but I had a few names in my head of people that I wanted to train with. And then my dad suggested Jamie. Jamie was the first port of call. He was the first one that I contacted and asked, for a trial and go and see how it was for a week or so. And I mean, after a couple of days, it just felt right. And I never actually reached out to anybody else. And that was my decision made. And obviously, I came to Jamie at the end of my career. I think I may have been 30 or 29 anyway when I teamed up with Jamie and Nige. But one of the regrets that I have is not winning a world title with him, boys, because I know I would have if I'd have teamed up with them earlier. That's all. If I had started my career with them guys, I'd have done the same, and then probably had a bit more longevity in my career, if I'm being honest. But look, it is what it is. I was happy I went there in the end.
That's all we've got time for in this episode of ChatterBox. Jamie, it's been fascinating talking to you and hearing the stories. It's been great to go back down memory lane. And of course, Carl, thanks as always. And thanks to our other guests, Frank Warren and Joe Joyce.